So for, dang near 20 years, this was a running joke between me and my brother. Hey, when you get mauled by a bear, it was never if you get mauled by a bear, it was when you get mauled by a bear, shove your arm down his throat.
These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. For those of you out there that are truck guys like me, I want to talk to you about one of our newest sponsors, Decked. If you don't know Decked, they make bomb-proof drawer systems to keep your gear organized and safely locked away in the back of your truck. Clothes, rifles, packs, kill kits can all get organized and at the ready so you don't get to your hunting spot and waste time trying to find stuff. We all know that guy. Don't be that guy. They also have a line of storage cases that fit perfectly in the drawers. We use them for organizing ammunition, knives, glassing equipment, extra clothing, and camping stuff. You can get a 2-drawer system for all dimensions of full-size truck beds, or a single drawer system that fits mid-size truck beds. And maybe best of all, they're all made in the USA. So get decked and get after it. Check them out at decked.com. Shipping is always free. Hello again, folks. Today we are outside Choteau, Montana with Chase Dellwo. And Chase, you have an incredible story that I've heard bits and pieces from multiple people about. But why don't you introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do before we get into it.
Hey everybody, my name is Chase. Like James said, we're just north of Choteau on our ranch. My wife and I are currently in the process of building a house, and we're set up in the living room, and it's very dirty and unput together. So
it's going to be a beautiful home. It's already beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I grew up about 30 miles straight west here along the Rocky Mountain front. My family had a ranch there, has a ranch there. Grew up hunting, fishing, chasing elk, chasing deer, chasing cows. Basically the best childhood you could ever have because I had no backyard. It was the Bob Marshall Wilderness and beyond. So it was pretty sweet.
And this country here is really interesting to me. It always has been because I like to think about what it would be like for those early European explorers who are coming out here, coming across all that plains for hundreds of miles, and then seeing the Rocky Mountain front, and how intimidating that must have been for them. Because this mountain range is pretty formidable just to look at, even from a distance of 50 miles or so, however far we are away from it now. And a heck of a lot of wilderness in there, and just a lot of really rugged, beautiful country. But from there, it's pretty flat. If you go east of here, there's not much else.
Oh, from here to the mountains, it's flat as a pancake except for one hill.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you head the other way, it's just barely downhill all the way to the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep. It's pretty flat here. That's for sure.
What kind of cattle did you guys raise? Or do you raise?
Simmental Angus cross.
Okay. A lot of red cattle in this country.
I don't like them. Small brains.
Yeah. Well, they taste good.
They taste good.
All right. So tell me your story. How did this start?
So it was a little over 9 years ago. My brother Shane and I, we were up at the ranch. At the time, my wife Becca and I were living in Bozeman and came up on a Friday night, stayed at my brother's house, and we were going to go out early Saturday morning and try and get on some elk. And the weather was terrible. It was 20, 30 mile an hour winds, raining and snowing. We found this group of probably 15, 20 head in a nice bowl in a really, really huntable spot. But we were waiting for my uncle to get there. So we kind of just let them be. To be honest, neither of us wanted to get out of the truck. We both wanted to stay where the heater was, so we just went for a drive. Drove over to another spot right on Muddy Creek, and the topography is more the same. It's flat. The creek bottom is a low depression. It's alfalfa fields on both sides. The brush there is 10 to 12 feet tall, 40 yards wide to 100 yards wide at some spots. So we kind of go down there and driving along, and we see the rear end of some elk walking into the brush about 200 yards west of us, and it's like, sweet. So plan was I was gonna just kind of stalk after them, see if I could get one. And my brother Shane, about a half mile to the west there, they crossed the fence, and the fence is always tore down there from elk crossing. So he was going to go set up there, and either I get a shot at one or I bump him right into him.
Is this rifle hunting or bow hunting?
Archery hunting.
Okay.
Yep. So anyways, I open up the door of the pickup. My shotgun is there. My pistol is there. My bear spray is there. My bow is there. The only thing I grab is my bow.
Sure. I mean, they're only 200 yards away,
Yep.
right?
Pickup's right there. We're hunting in some brush and some alfalfa meadows. So take on after them. It's snowing, but the snow isn't sticking. The ground is warm enough. It's just melting off right away. And so just kind of sneak after them, doing a little bit of cow calling, trying to get some responses just to kind of keep a bearing on them. There's a beaver dam, and the pond is dried up. It dried up a long time ago. So where the pond was is just grass. Mm-hmm. And I could see the elk right on the other side of it.
So you're thinking this is going to happen.
Right. And they're about 70, 75 yards away. And so I kind of dropped below the old beaver dam, and because they were going to the north. So I was going to use that beaver dam to kind of swing around to the north and get in front of them. And I got my eye on the elk, and I'm walking along this beaver, the bottom side of this beaver dam, and it's pretty thick brush. Mm-hmm.
Of course, you're probably trying to be as quiet as you possibly could.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at that, though. I get excited at times, but I had the wind to help me out, and with as wet as it was, everything was it was good hunting conditions as far as noise.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm walking along. I got my eyes trained to my left, and out of the corner of my eye, there's some movement basically at my feet, 3-4 feet away. And I turned my head, and I had woken up a grizzly bear that was taking a nap. And I took a step back, and I started to draw my bow. And with his left paw, he hit me halfway between my hip and my right knee. It knocked me to the ground. Came on top of me. I pulled my bow up over my face. But bears are pretty strong, and he ripped that thing out of there like it wasn't even there.
What did that hit feel like when he swatted you?
Nothing. I felt nothing.
Yeah.
We'll circle back to that, because that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So he pulled the bow out of my hands, and I was on my back, over and over, play dead, play dead, play dead. I just tucked my chin, held my fists up like a boxer, and tried to protect my throat, and he bit into the back of my head, through my nose, through my eye socket, through my face, kind of as a dog, shakes a chew toy. Mm-hmm. That's basically what I felt like at that time. Again, there was no pain at the time. There was a lot of screaming.
Besides pain, though, were any of your other senses firing? Like, were you smelling anything? Were you hearing anything? He
had a very stinky breath. It's hard to describe, just a dark, musky, stinky smell. Mm-hmm. But no, there was no pain. It all happened so fast, and the adrenaline was just going.
Could you hear those teeth on your skull?
Yeah, it was loud.
Yeah. Very
loud. Especially across my left temple. That one was pretty loud. Just like a dog kind of growls when he's shaking that toy, bear did the same thing to me. And then he left, and I was a little bit I never lost consciousness, but I was obviously dazed. I sit up, I start to kind of assess what's going on. I reach for my bow. Don't know where my hat is. Don't know why that was important at the time, but I was looking for my hat. Anyway, he must seen me again, and he came back a second time. He tore into my right lower leg, and same deal, just like a dog with a chew toy, just shaking the heck out of it. Then came back up for my face again, and my right arm, and just same time, just shaking with every bite and not being very friendly.
Do you think he was trying to kill you?
No, I think if he wanted to kill me, I wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
He was taking a nap, and I walked into his bedroom, and he was giving me what I had coming.
So when you say something like bears are strong, can you get into that a little bit more? Because folks don't understand how strong they are.
So at the time it happened, I was 26, 200 pounds. I'm not a weak person. I'm a pretty strong guy. I work at the time I worked out, and there was nothing I could do.
Yeah. Can't even move the needle.
Yeah. And this bear was 350, probably 350 pounds. Pretty conservative estimate. And
which is about what they are here, isn't it? Maybe a little bit on the light side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a younger bear.
Yeah.
But there was nothing. I mean, it was like trying to move a trailer house.
Yeah.
I could try as hard as I could. There's no budging that thing.
Yeah. I mean, you think about how they make their living, right? They're killing elk and moose and stuff like with their face.
Yep. And they're digging up rocks the size of 400 pounds to get stuff underneath of them. And,
yeah. To eat a couple ants.
Yep. Ants and moths. And they're an incredible animal for sure.
The Six Ranch podcast is brought to you by Nick's Handmade Boots, a family-owned company in Spokane, Washington. For many of my listeners, you've waited and prepared all year for this. Whether your pursuit is with a rifle or a bow, early or late season, big game or birds, another hunting season is finally upon us. Nick's Boots and the Six Ranch want to wish you luck as you head out into the field. This season, I'm wearing the Nick's Boots Game Breakers, beginning with the archery elk season. Having worn this boot throughout the summer around the Six Ranch, I continue to be impressed with how quiet the boot is. The rough-out leather laces, and 365 stitch-down construction create a simple boot that is supportive, durable, comfortable, and most importantly, quieter than most synthetic hunting boots. For 60 years, Nick's has been building work boots for wildland firefighters, tradespeople, hunters, and ranchers, as well as heritage styles for anyone who values quality footwear made in America. Visit nicksboots.com today to find your next pair of high-quality American-made work boots. Add a pair of boots and a work belt to your cart and use the code 6RANCH. That's the number 6 and the word ranch to receive the belt for free. Ripping stumps apart. Like, just imagine that. Like, if we had to make our living ripping apart a stump with your hands so that you could eat a couple bee larvae or something like that, and then turn over this giant rock so you can eat a couple ants, and then chase down and kill an elk using your face. Yep. Like, that's incredible.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people
awesome.
Spend time thinking about that. So now it's you versus this. And he's come back 3 times now.
Twice.
Come back twice. Yeah. So then what happened?
So kind of a long story. When I was a little kid, my grandmother, she always got me National Geographics. And there was an article in one of these National Geographics about a gentleman in Africa who was mauled by a lion. And he was able to survive by shoving his arm down the lion's throat. And so I might have been 8 or 9 when this was read to me. So for, dang near 20 years, this was a running joke between me and my brother. Hey, when you get mauled by a bear, it was never if you get mauled by a bear, it was when you get mauled by a bear, shove your arm down his throat. So when the bear was chewing on my arm, it seemed like that would be the logical thing to do. And I was on my back, and he had my right arm in his mouth, and I just shoved back as hard as I could. And he pushed off of me and went the other way almost immediately.
And then was he gone for good?
I was.
You were?
I grabbed my bow, because where I was down on the lower side of the beaver dam, and it was pretty thick brush. I grabbed my bow, and it was only 20, 30 yards. I made it to the middle of that meadow where the dried up pond was, and knocked an arrow. That was the only thing I had. Kind of did a little bit of assessment. How bad is this? So at that time, from basically the bridge of my nose back to the very top of my head and around to my ear was hanging down to my chin. He basically scalped me.
So the skin from the top of your head must have been covering your eye a little bit too.
Yeah, my left eye. So I flopped that back up on my head, and I could see out of my left eye, which at the time I wasn't sure if I had an eye left or not. Mm-hmm. So I was all good there. I had my eye, just a bunch of floppy skin hanging from my head. I didn't know how bad it was. Typically don't have cell phone service there. Pulled out my phone, called my brother. The blood was like pouring out of my head. Pouring out of my head. Covered the screen of my phone. I didn't know if the call went through or not. Throw the phone back in my pocket. So right now, my brother is a half mile, at least the plan was he was going to be about a half mile west of me. My uncle's house wasn't too far away, and I didn't know if I should waste time trying to find my brother, who is hunting down in this creek bottom, or if I just hightail it to my uncle's house. So I just chose to go to my uncle's house. There's a landline there. I know I can call there. So I start walking out, and that bull that I was hunting, he comes walking out of the trees, and he's about 35 yards away, and he's just looking at me like, man, buddy, I feel bad for you. And I remember being so mad. Like, I don't know why I never turned off the hunting. Yeah. Like, I wanted to kill that elk. Sure. Still, after, and I just remember I couldn't, and I just yelled at him. Stupid, just a dumb thing. But I remember I just yelled at that elk. Like, I was mad that I couldn't shoot him. Yeah. Anyway, so I started hiking.
How's your leg doing?
Yeah, it still hadn't quite set in. Sure. Still wasn't pain. I walked out of the creek bottom, and I see my pickup, and it wasn't anywhere near where it was supposed to be. So I flagged my brother down, and he is no help whatsoever. He just stayed in the pickup, and he's glassing the other direction. And so my leg is starting to stiffen up, both from where I got my lower leg where I got chewed on, and my upper leg where I got hit by a I-beam, felt like. So I go to the pickup, and he's just sitting in there. And I remember seeing my reflection in the glass of the window, like, oh, you are messed up, buddy.
That had to have been shocking.
A little bit, yep. So I open up the door of the pickup. My brother Shane still hasn't gotten out. He's just kind of looking at me like, what the heck? And I'm like, I got mauled by a bear. And he freaked out for 2 seconds. And he hops out of the pickup. Driver's seat comes over. He grabs my bow and throws it in the back. And I yelled at him for that, because that's not how you treat a bow, right? Set it down nicely. And he started taking off my clothes, seeing, you could tell the face and my head. That was obvious stuff, but he wanted to make sure I wasn't bleeding out anywhere else. Or
very smart.
So he loaded me back up in the pickup, And it's as my friend Colton would say, it's not quite a road back to the county road. And he made very good time on that, not so much of a road that hurt like hell. And
getting bounced around while you're already jacked up is not a fun experience.
Yeah. And
you getting scared yet at this point?
I don't know if scared is the right word. It's hard to describe. Like I knew it was bad. Shane knew it was bad, but his demeanor changed the entire thing. He called the sheriff's department, said, "Hey, my name is Shane Dellwo. I'm driving a white F-150. I'm going to be speeding. Don't pull me over." Hung up the phone. Called the hospital in Shoto. "This is Shane Dellwo. My brother Chase got mauled by a bear. He's going to need this, this, and this. Have the emergency room ready for him." He called my wife, was very calm, said, "Hey, Becca, Chase got mauled by a bear. You have to pack clothes for 3 days. You have to get in your car, make sure it's full of gas, and drive to Great Falls, and we'll meet you there." He was just like we're having this conversation. That was the same tone of his voice. Mm-hmm. Just very calm. So that was a huge thing. He was very calming.
Nice to have a guy like that around during an emergency.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, we drove into town and went to the emergency room in Shoto. And they were great.
How long's that drive?
Well, it depends on if your brother just got mauled by a bear, it's about 25 minutes, but normally it's about an hour.
Yeah.
We made it to town pretty dang quick. Got in there. They did x-rays of my leg. Leg wasn't broken. Skull was fractured in 2 spots. So they thought, basically with Shoto, it was just a PA on call on a Saturday and not a lot they could do there. So we, jumped in an ambulance and drove to Great Falls. And then I sat there for hours and hours and hours just bleeding, waiting to get into surgery.
Really? Just like in a waiting room or something?
No, I was in the emergency room, but I'm with the, being scalped.
Yeah.
You can't just put pressure on it and stop the bleeding.
Right.
Tourniquet around the throat wouldn't do much good either.
Yeah. I mean, that brings it to a conclusion.
So yeah, just kept pumping the fluids to me and, trying to keep me halfway cleaned up. And
so were they throwing blood into you at that point?
Nope, no blood.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. So you're there for hours waiting to get into surgery at Great Falls. Did you feel like you're in good hands there?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Had they seen bear attacks before?
No. The only one that had, there was a gentleman who was a traveling nurse and he was from Alaska and he was in Shoto. And, when I was in the emergency room in Shoto, there's a little bit of indecision. And my family was there and they weren't handling the situation very well. I'm like, "All right, guys, has anybody ever dealt with this before?" And this gentleman raised his hand and said, "Yeah, I have. I'm from Alaska. I've seen a couple bear attacks." And like, "All right, what do we do?" So he didn't take charge, but he kind of gave some welcome advice and we went from there.
And this is you who's coordinating that and having that conversation?
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So what was surgery like?
No idea. I got into an argument with a nurse kind of over some stupid things. I wanted to get up and move myself to the operating table and they said no. And I said, "I walked in here, I can do this." And
sure.
That wasn't the appropriate response.
It's hard to know when to quit being a cowboy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, before surgery, had an MRI. My skull wasn't fractured. It was basically just cuts in my bone from the canine of the bear.
That's good news.
So that was good. So went into surgery Saturday, so it's not a full staff, of course. So I had an ear, nose, and throat doctor who did the putting together of Humpty Dumpty after he fell off the wall on my face, and I think he did a pretty bang up job.
Yeah, I think you look great.
Thank you.
I mean, I can see some scars and stuff, but it doesn't look like you got, spent time with your face inside of a bear's mouth.
Yep.
Yeah. What was the recovery like?
So the wound in my leg, on my lower leg, that was just a couple puncture wounds from the canines. My upper leg, that bear hit me so hard that the claws didn't cut my skin, but he hit me so hard that the skin broke. And I was black from my hip down to my ankle from that. I mean, just to show you how strong they are. I mean, that just from him hitting me.
I've seen pictures of yearling cattle in Wyoming. They have had their necks broken and their head turned 180 degrees around from a bear hitting them.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like like a cat swatting at a ball of yarn. This is a different thing.
Yeah. So I had that. I had a tube in my head, 47 stitches, 47 staples, 400 to 500 stitches in my face and head. So I think I was in the hospital until I think I get discharged on the 7th of October. And this happened on the 3rd. And then Becca drove me back to Bozeman. Had a couple follow-up appointments, more emergency room visits for pain and some other things, potential blood clots in my leg. Had a appointment with back in Great Falls with the ENT and the guy that worked on my lower leg on the 15th of October. And the ENT was very happy. He removed a bunch of staples, took out the drain. And when I went to see trying to think of his name, Jeremy's his first name. Anyway, when I went to see him for my lower leg, he took off the dressing and basically looked at it and smelled it and cleared his schedule for the next day. And I had to go into surgery and had it's called a wound debridement, where basically they just go in there and cut out anything and everything that might be infected.
Right.
The canines had punctured. There's a sac around your bones.
Mm-hmm.
It had punctured that sac, and so the infection was spreading along my bone. Had a really nice, easy path to spread there. So back up a little bit for recovery and all the stuff that's going on. So the holes in my leg, they were too big to sew closed. And with wounds like that, you have to get them to heal from the inside out. Mm-hmm. So when you do that, they showed my wife how to do it once, and then she had to do it for the next 10 days. She took about a 20-inch piece of ribbon gauze and would pack it into my leg twice a day.
Yep.
And pull it out. And it hurt like hell pulling it out, but that also stimulated the tissue to help regrowth. So that was a painful experience twice a day, every day. So then, after the follow-up visit to Dr. Jeremy in Great Falls, I had to go in to have surgery the next day. And they just went to cutting and cut out any material that looked questionable. The remedy for that, so they took a small hole. They took a couple small holes and made it a big hole. Mm-hmm. It was called a wound vac. And what they do there is they take a sponge and they pack it into the wound. And then they hook up a vacuum over it, and they, for lack of a better word, just cover everything with a piece of plastic so it has a good seal. And then this wound vac, it creates a negative pressure, so it increases blood flow to the area.
Yep.
And I had that on for 18 days, and it was incredible to watch that just gaping hole in my leg close up.
Sounds painful, though.
Oh, it was miserable because twice a week I had to go in and they had to rip that sponge out. And so your tissue is growing around all the
Right.
pieces of the sponge, and they ripped it out. They it couldn't have been fun for them either, because it was bad. But also that was at the wound clinic down in Bozeman, and it was for people that had abdominal surgeries. You know, there's one guy in there, I remember seeing him. It was like a small dinner plate on his side, on his stomach. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't have it that bad. That guy's he's got a crap time ahead of him.
What were you doing for work at the time?
I was an electrician.
So, I mean, how does something like this set you back? Like, how do you manage that stuff? Did you have insurance that was helping you out?
Yep, I did have insurance. Pretty good insurance. The company I worked with, they were pretty awesome. All the time I took off, they just paid me for it like I was working for them.
That's nice.
I didn't take very much time off work. We had just bought a house and emptied our savings. I think I only took like maybe 60 hours off work. We were doing this building for Barnard Construction. It was their new office headquarters, and there were 100+ office spaces. So
Yeah.
I just had a little chair with wheels. I would go around, put in outlets, just as light duty as you can do.
That's awesome. But you're getting back in it just as quick as you can.
Yeah.
Now there's the physical recovery side of it, and then there's the mental health recovery side of it. That can take a hell of a lot longer.
Oh, it was terrible. Yep.
Yeah. What was that like?
Just
What is that like?
Constant nightmares.
Yeah.
It
Was it the same nightmare?
No, never. Well, sometimes, but the human mind is a pretty impressive thing, and it's pretty crazy the terrible things we can dream up.
Mm-hmm.
I went for about 5, almost 6 months without sleeping more than an hour or two at a time.
Because you get a little bit scared to sleep because that night that nightmare's coming.
Yeah. My friend Brock, he bought me the movie Jurassic World, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll watch this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, watching a show about people getting eaten by animals after you just almost got eaten by an animal was a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I watched Mulan and Tangled and a whole bunch of Disney movies for like 2 days straight, just trying to
find something happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ended up going to, I can only remember his first name, Chris. He specialized in PTSD treatment for veterans. Went to him for a long time. Huge help.
Mm-hmm.
Huge help. Kind of a pride ego deal not going to him sooner. Wish I would have, because it was immensely helpful.
Yeah. I talked to a guy in Alaska who'd gotten mauled by a brown bear, and it had blinded him. And he talked about the PTSD from that. And I was up there with a group of combat wounded veterans, and he said, "Well, it's nothing like the PTSD that some of you guys might have." And I said, "No, it's exactly like that. Like it's really truly exactly like that. It doesn't really matter what causes it. The response to it, while it varies from person to person, it's the same thing. And if you've had a traumatic experience that is causing you post-traumatic stress, you need to go get that worked on."
Yeah,
right?
It was a hard deal to say, yeah, I need to go get that worked on.
It is hard. It's super hard. When I first got hurt in Afghanistan, I went to, I just went to like a brain doctor, right? And he's like, "Oh, you're going to feel better in a couple of days." Well, a couple of days go by and I'm not feeling better. I'm actually feeling worse. This continues to go on. And somebody said, "Well, you might need to go talk to a psychologist." I'm like, well, that's not going to happen.
Yep. Know the feeling.
And eventually that became like my only option. I was like, I'll try anything. So I went and talked to this guy, asked me where I'm from, said, "Oh, I'm a cattle rancher from small town, Northeast Oregon." And he said, "So just to establish a baseline here, if I asked you if like people in your community and in your family would think that mental health is real, would they say yes or no? And I'd be like, well, probably no. And he goes, great. Now we know where to start. It's like, it's real. And, now we're going to get into trying to figure out how to fix this stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. But man, it's a lot of work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to admit it.
Yeah. Especially kind of coming from the cultures that you and I do, right? Yeah, it's really tough. So how did this experience, affect the way you spend your time outdoors? Like, do you still hunt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you still hunt in bear country?
Same spot.
Same spot.
That same year. So that happened on October 3rd. I think it was the day after Thanksgiving. My uncle took Becca, my wife, out, and me elk hunting, and rifle season now, of course. And as we're driving to our spot, bear crosses the road and literally feet from the pickup.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Ran into numerous bears since then. And when you were driving in here, you turned off the highway.
Mm-hmm.
And right when you turn south, starting in early May, we start irrigating. And Becca comes out here in the mornings, and she has about a 2.5 mile loop that she runs with our dogs. And she typically just parks the highway and runs in and checks all the irrigation pumps and the pivots. And there were I think there were 2-year-old cubs that just got kicked off their mom right there by that turn where you turned to come back south.
Yeah.
And, they're
out here in the prairie.
Yeah, right here. Over your shoulder, about 2.5 miles down the way. My buddy Ben, he had a bear charge him on his porch, and he shot it. Lucky circumstances there. He just got back from a hunting trip and had his rifle leaned up against the door as he was unloading some other stuff and
on his front porch.
Yeah. So, getting away from bears isn't an option. I still hunt. My wife still hunts. We're going to do it. We're going to teach our kids to do it. We weren't hunting this year. Had a lot of stuff going on. Just haven't got the bows out, but still wanted to show the kids what it's like. So we loaded up one morning, drove out in the dark, went and hiked up into some elk country and looked around for some elk, saw some cows, heard the bull bugling, never got a glimpse of him, but took the kids. They're 4. My daughter Sloan, she's 4, and Riker's 6, and took them out there and showed them that. And with me and God's help, hopefully they enjoy it and get a passion for it, because it is awesome.
Folks are going to want to know what happened to the bear.
As I know, he's still running around.
Do you have any thoughts or feelings towards that individual animal?
No, I woke him up. If he walked into my bedroom, I probably would have tried to whoop up on him too.
Yeah. What are your feelings about, or what advice would you give to, say, folks of Washington State, where they're looking at reintroducing or introducing bears to an area where they've not been there, for 100+ years? They're trying to bring grizzlies in there.
Don't.
Yeah. Because you being out here on the edge of the front, like, bears are part of everyone's life and have been for a long time.
Kind of.
Okay.
So where I grew up, Highway 89 kind of follows the Rocky Mountain front from the Canadian border south. So from there west, the population density is very small of people.
Mm-hmm.
So the ranch that I grew up on, our nearest neighbor was 6 or 8 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
The 20 miles from the ranch to the highway, that was it. To the north, to the south, it was a long way. We had the one neighbor, and then from that, it was about another 40-minute drive to the next neighbor. So, and when I was a kid, we had bear encounters all the time. I went out, I was probably my son's age, maybe a little bit older. I go out, walk out the door of the house to go put the sheep in for the night. And there's a bear eating out of the dog food dish, 6 feet away from me. There's been a grizzly bear in our house. They're there a lot. They have been a lot. In the last 10 years, the population is increasing incredibly. So they're getting pushed farther and farther down. So like these bears that my wife ran into this past May, you can look around and count 20 houses from where she saw those bears at.
Right.
And I don't know the population density or the area that they want to reintroduce bears into Washington, but here it works because where our ranch is, it butts up immediately to the west of it. There's the Blackleaf Game Range, and then there's I don't know how many tens of thousands of acres of Forest Service, and then the Bob Marshall Scapegoat Glacier National Park, millions of acres. So that's where they belong. They're going to come down, which is just fine. But when you actually establish populations of bears down here on the prairie, there's going to be issues. So from where we're sitting, you can count house. Everybody has a couple hundred acres here, but there's a pile of houses, a pile of families. So there's a big difference from where we are to where my family's ranch is, just as far as people.
Right.
They have always had and will continue to have livestock conflicts. My family, they deal with it very well. Have a good relationship with the Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and DNRC guys. And
because grizzlies are listed, when you have that conflict, you also need to involve U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Yep.
So you've got multiple agencies kind of mucking things up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not an easy situation right now. I would sure like to see grizzlies get delisted. I'm sure you would as well.
In the right way.
What would be the right way?
Slowly.
Yeah. So delist by area, or what would slowly look like?
Well, number one, don't auction off a tag. So you have a, multimillionaire come out here and do things the wrong way.
Right.
Have a raffle and one tag the first year.
Yeah.
And go up from there, because it's going to take baby steps. It needs to happen. It should happen. But doing it the right way, I think, is incredibly important.
What I hear from the biologists in Montana is that the population is ready to be delisted, even completely aside from whether they're hunted or how they're hunted, but just they no longer need the protection of the Endangered Species Act.
No, they don't. You're correct. And focus on where you're going to hunt these bears. Mm-hmm. Don't just say, correct me if I'm wrong, the term in the news is the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem for these bears.
Right.
And then the Yellowstone.
Greater Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. Yeah. So when you have the Yellowstone label, right?
Yeah.
People are thinking you're shooting bears in the park.
Yeah.
You're not. And when they do issue a tag, it should be 100 miles from the park. So there's no question. So you don't shoot Charlie Brown Bear off
somebody with a name and a number.
Yeah. Do it a ways away. Like here, for instance. So out the front door here is Highway 220. You have the Teton River that goes down there. I have a friend who last year he had 16 of 17 grain bin doors get ripped off.
Wow.
And bears are strong. They can rip off a grain bin door. I can't. But they're opportunistic. They're smart. Grain's a good feed for them. Hunt those bears.
Right.
The ones up there in the mountains that are having to find a wounded moose or elk and chase that thing down, leave those guys be. They got a rough life. The ones down here in a cornfield or a grain field, hunt that one and put a little bit of pressure on the ones that are in a populated area.
Yeah. Because like you mentioned, what you don't want are bears who are born out here around people, and this is all they ever know, because you can't relocate that bear someplace else. He'll just come back.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be conflict. So it's not a fair thing to the bear. It's not a fair thing to the people. It's not a fair thing to the pets and to the livestock. It's a bad situation.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we recorded a show this winter about the bears in Tahoe, and in the city of Tahoe, they have this huge bear population that have become completely dependent upon people.
Right.
They're denning underneath people's houses. They're living off garbage and dog food. And when they've taken these bears out into the wild, they're either coming back or they're starving to death because they don't know how to live without people.
Right.
And I said, you know, eventually this is going to end up in conflict. And at the time, nobody had been killed by a bear in California. Well, a couple months later, it happened. A bear came into this woman's house and killed her. And they're having to put up electric doormats so that when bears approach doors, because they know how to open doors, that they're getting shocked by these doormats.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. That's with black bears, right? Which is a lot closer to a 300-pound raccoon than what we're talking about. If you start developing that type of situation with grizzlies, it's just entirely different. And I hope that people understand the difference between grizzly bears and black bears. So there's a lot of differences that are pretty meaningful.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure grateful you made it through all that, and
I am too. Thank you.
And that you had your brother and your family and all those doctors and people that helped you out and helped you through all that. I'm glad you're still hunting.
Oh, I wouldn't give that up for anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just had a pretty good hunting trip a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if Colton told you about that. My wife shot her first bull elk.
I saw a picture of it. Yeah. Tell her I said congratulations.
I will. No, that was pretty sweet. Had the kids along and everything, and
yeah,
it was a heck of a hunt.
That's sweet. I think people fantasize a little bit about bear attacks, and they don't understand quite how it's going to go down. What advice would you give to people who are going to spend time in grizzly country?
The biggest mistake I made is I was alone. And the way that we used to hunt, you would spot a bull, and where we hunt is it's weird terrain. Not so much mountains. Picture like honestly, it's more like Alaska with the low brush down in the coulees and stuff. So you're on your hands and knees crawling through stuff. You're always going against the wind, being quiet, making elk sounds. Not a great combination of things. Since then, changed how we hunt. There are some spots you just don't go. But yeah, that's the biggest thing is don't go alone. I am pretty confident, having another person there would have, that bear might have roughed me up for 2 or 3 seconds. Then with another person there would have left. But that was a big thing. And, he may have heard us 2 people making noise instead of 1 person. But it wouldn't have mattered if I had my bear sprayer, shotgun, or pistol. There was no time to use anything.
Yeah.
It just happened too quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so from now on, kind of how my wife and I hunt is she always has the bear spray at the ready. I carry a pistol. Most of the times I have a shotgun. Whenever we're moving from spot to spot, she carries both bows, and I have either my pistol or shotgun in hand, ready to use it.
What pistol do you carry?
I carry a Kimber 1911 10 millimeter. She got it for my wedding present.
Nice. What ammo do you like?
HSM makes it. It's a bear load. I think it's a 230 grain soft point.
Gotcha. I've got some better stuff that I'm going to send you.
Perfect.
Yeah. You'll like it.
I'm all about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll get the folks at G9 to send you some Woodsman ammo. Works really well. really well on bears and things like that. I used it on a black bear that was charging me and killed him real quick.
Oh, wow.
Which was cool.
What was the situation around that?
He was eating a dead elk, and I saw ravens over it and was trying to figure out what was going on.
Just curious.
And I came in downwind, and there's a bunch of scratch marks going up a tree that was right next to it. It was a little bear, and I think that a bigger bear had been coming in and shoving him off of it, and he'd had enough. So when I came in, he just charged me, and I shot him and killed him.
Gotcha.
But it's funny what goes through your mind on that deal. One of the first things that went through my mind was, I'm going to get jacked up by this little tiny bear, and my friends are going to make fun of me because it was like 130 pounds. It was like a black lab sized bear. But yeah, it's just it is funny kind of looking back on what goes through your mind. But yeah, we'll get you some better ammo, and
I hope I never need it.
Hope you don't ever need it either. But there's more stuff out there that needs to get shot with a pistol from time to time than just an old grizzly bear.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Alrighty, sir. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing a finished product of your beautiful home here.
Thank you.
And I think that you're going to have a great life in this spot with this incredible view and your family.
I hope to.
Pretty special.
Well, and thanks for making the trip up, and it was nice meeting you.
My pleasure. Bye, everybody. I just want to take a second and thank everyone who's written a review, who has sent mail, who's sent emails, who's sent messages. Your support is incredible. And I also love running into you at trade shows and events and just out on the hillside when we're hunting. I think that that's fantastic. I hope you guys keep adventuring as hard and as often as you can. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and was digitized by Celia Harlander. Original music was written and performed by Justin Hay, and the Six Ranch podcast is now produced by Six Ranch Media. Thank you all so much for your continued support of the show, and I look forward to next week when we can bring you a brand new episode.